Clarity isn't natural, it's trained. The mind wants to move, to solve, to name, to react, to fill the silence before it stretches too far. So we rush to conclusions, to opinions, to answers that only feel right because they came fast. But the Stoic, he doesn't rush, he watches. Because clarity isn't speed, it's stillness that knows how to cut through. Most people don't think, they echo, they rehearse, they defend what they didn't choose, just because it's familiar. And that familiarity becomes noise. Noise that stacks, thoughts that collide, assumptions that harden into truth without ever being tested. But clarity doesn't live in noise, it lives beneath it. And to reach it, you must first remove the false urgency, the need to be right, the compulsion to speak before you've listened. So the Stoic does less to see more. He subtracts, not as an escape, but as a return to what's real, to what's his, to what survives when everything else is questioned. Because clarity isn't the mind buzzing with ideas. It's the moment you realize which thoughts were never yours to keep. It's not a gift, it's not a mood, it's not a random burst of genius. It's trained, like stillness, like strength, like peace. You earn it by facing the noise and refusing to carry it with you. Stillness is a weapon. The world moves fast, too fast, louder voices, shorter thoughts. Everyone's talking, but no one's hearing. You're expected to keep up, to reply, to react, to be first, even when your mind isn't ready. But the Stoic knows, what moves fast rarely sees clear. Because clarity doesn't come when everything is spinning. It comes when something finally stops. Stillness isn't weakness, it's strategy. A deliberate act of stepping out of the rush. So the rush doesn't carry you with it. While others chase momentum, the Stoic chases precision. He doesn't guess, he doesn't flinch. He waits, he watches the dust settle. He listens to what isn't being said. He reads the silence like a battlefield. Because in the still, you see who's bluffing, you see what matters, you see yourself. Most react because silence makes them insecure. The Stoic embraces it because silence makes him dangerous. Stillness sharpens the signal. It separates the urgent from the true. It gives thought space to breathe. So when he moves, it's not emotional. It's not rushed, it's aimed. Stillness isn't about doing nothing. It's about doing one thing, right? The pause is the difference between chaos and control. And in that space, the Stoic becomes untouchable. Assumptions are traps. Dig deeper. Some thoughts don't come from truth, they come from habit. You heard it, you accepted it, and now it moves inside you, unseen, unquestioned, until it steers your life. But the Stoic doesn't let old thoughts drive new directions. He stops, he checks, he challenges the voice that sounds like his, but isn't. Because assumptions are traps dressed like shortcuts. They tell you what's safe, what's true, what you are, without ever asking if you agreed. People always leave. I'm just not good at this. I already know how they'll respond. They'll never change. I'm too late. Sound familiar? They should. They've been looping in the background for years. But thinking clearly means holding them up to light. Where did this come from? Who planted it? Do I still need it? What has it cost me? Because the beliefs that bind you aren't always loud. They're just older than your current self. And the Stoic refuses to be ruled by something he never chose. So he prunes, not violently, but deliberately. He untangles thought from fact, emotion from logic, fear from truth. And when he's done, he's not full, he's clean. Because clarity isn't about stacking ideas, it's about cutting the ones that never belonged. Don't just think, question. Don't just agree, investigate. Don't just continue. Interrupt. Assumptions rot in silence. Let them speak, then let them go. Control what's yours, release what's not. The world is heavy when you try to carry all of it, what they think, how they feel, where it's going, what might happen. So you tighten your grip, you plan more, predict more, clench more. But the Stoic, he doesn't grip, he guards. Not the future, not outcomes, but the only territory he was ever given, himself. His thoughts, his impulses, his responses, his decisions. Because most chaos doesn't come from what happens, it comes from the illusion that you could have stopped it. But control isn't about reach, it's about recognition, knowing what's yours to shape and what's meant to pass through. The Stoic doesn't try to catch the wind, he builds the wall inside so it doesn't knock him over. When things break, he breathes. When people leave, he lets them. When the plan shifts, he adjusts. Because his peace isn't tied to everything going right. It's tied to how little power he gives to what isn't his. He doesn't control the noise, he controls the filter. Doesn't chase certainty. He sharpens preparedness. And when storms hit, he doesn't command the sky, he commands his stance. Control isn't domination, it's ownership of the only thing that truly answers to you. And once you know what that is, you stop wasting energy on what never did. Simple doesn't mean less, it means focused. Complexity looks smart, but it rarely sees straight. The world rewards loudness. More tools, more tabs, more steps to feel like you're moving. But the Stoic moves in lines, not loops, because clarity doesn't need decoration, it needs direction. Simple isn't empty, it's selective. It's knowing that every thought takes space, every choice takes energy, every noise pulls you from the signal. And the ones who think clear aren't the ones who say more, they're the ones who carry less. The Stoic cuts, trims, unclutters. He reduces his wants, his words, his worries, not because he doesn't care, but because he cares enough to protect what matters, to do one thing. Well, instead of 5 with no soul. He doesn't chase complexity to look capable, he chooses clarity to stay capable. Simple isn't for the weak, it's for the sharp, the precise, the ones who don't confuse movement with meaning. So strip the excess, not to impress, but to breathe. Strip the mental clutter, the mental noise, the mental need to overprove. Because the clearest mind isn't the fullest, it's the cleanest. And clean is hard to fake. Thinking clearly isn't thinking more. Overthinking looks like effort, but it's just exhaustion in disguise. You loop, you spiral, you dissect the same thought 100 different ways and call it figuring it out. But the Stoic sees the trap, because real thought, sharp thought, doesn't repeat. It moves. Clarity doesn't come from volume, it comes from decision. From knowing when a thought has served its use and when it's just circling because you're afraid to act. The mind loves motion, but motion isn't momentum. Sometimes it's just a mask for avoidance, so the Stoic interrupts it. He calls it what it is. He asks, is this leading me anywhere? Or just keeping me busy enough to feel safe? He doesn't indulge thought just because it's loud, he listens. Then he chooses. Because thinking clearly isn't about being right, it's about being honest with how much noise you're letting stay. Overthinking doesn't mean you're deep, it means you haven't decided, and nothing is heavier than a mind that won't commit. So the Stoic commits, even if it's not perfect, even if it's not safe, because a single clear step beats 1,000 anxious loops. And peace doesn't come when the thinking stops. It comes when the right thought finally does. Clarity begins with gratitude. Most people chase clarity by solving more, planning more, controlling more. But the Stoic begins by noticing what's here, what's steady, what's already enough. Gratitude isn't decoration, it's direction. It brings the mind back from what's missing to what's real, from what could go wrong to what's gone right. It doesn't deny problems, it anchors perspective. It doesn't ignore the pain, it frames it inside something wider. Because thinking clearly requires more than thought, it requires presence. And nothing pulls you back to the present like the quiet inventory of what you still have. Your breath, your feet, your spine, upright, even on heavy days. Clarity isn't a storm of insight, it's a stillness built from small recognitions. The roof above, the voice that didn't crack, the mistake you survived and what it taught you. The Stoic doesn't wait for the world to align before he feels peace. He creates it by looking closer. Because when you feel grounded, you think grounded. And a mind grounded in gratitude sees more than fear, more than lack, more than threat. It sees options. Clarity is a lens, cleaned by humility. It's hard to feel overwhelmed when you're quietly amazed that you're still here, still learning, still breathing, still carrying what didn't break you. So before the next question, thank the answer that's already beside you. Before you rush for the fix, feel the part of you that no longer needs fixing. Not because everything's perfect, but because you finally saw it clear. Thinking clearly isn't a goal, it's a practice. It's not a moment of brilliance, not a breakthrough, not something you finally unlock after enough books or effort. It's daily, deliberate, disciplined, built in small decisions, what to carry, what to question, what to ignore. The Stoic doesn't wait for clarity, he returns to it. Every time distraction pulls, every time ego speaks, every time emotion tries to speak louder than principle, he clears space, he clears noise, he clears himself. Because the clearest thinking isn't born from noise, it's born from stillness, from cutting, from listening, until what remains doesn't move, and what doesn't move leads. So if your mind feels full, it's not broken, it's just waiting to be cleaned. One breath at a time, one choice at a time. One return to the part of you that never needed more to see clear. Not louder, not faster, just sharper. That's what Stoicism sharpens. Not thought, but the thinker.